Welcome to Bricklayer. In this video, I'm going to show you how to write Bricklayer programs that can create artifacts that contain circles. Now, before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about circles in general. So first thing I'd like to mention is that the circle functions that are in Bricklayer are more complex than the put functions that you've been using in level 1 and level 2. So the put functions in level 1 and 2 accept a single input. That input is a coordinate, and that coordinate is the lower left corner of the rectangle that you're creating with this put function. In contrast, the circle function accepts 3 inputs. So the first input tells you how big the circle is that you're creating. The second input tells you what color Lego brick will be used to create this circle. And the third input is a coordinate that tells you where you're supposed to create this circle. Now, there are 2 concepts that are kind of important for us to know about when we're writing programs that use circle functions. We need to know about the radius and the diameter. So I'm going to talk about that in just a little bit. And once I have that, we've sort of pinned that down, then we'll jump in and we will play around and write some bricklayer-lite programs, level 2 programs that use the circle function. And then I'll come back after that and we'll look at some artifacts that have been constructed in Bricklayer using circles. Excuse me. So in pure math, a point has no size. So it has no width and it has no height. And the center of a circle is a point. And the distance from that point to the edge is called the radius. And if you have 2 of those radiuses together that form a line, then the length of that line is the diameter of the circle. And so technically speaking, you would add the diameter is twice the radius plus the size of the point. But since the point has no size, it's just twice the radius. So the diameter is twice the radius, 2 times the radius. Now in Bricklayer, things are a little bit different. Points in Bricklayer actually have size. A point for us is a single cell, and it has a size 1. So they're pretty big points from this mathematical perspective. But if we go about trying to figure out the diameter in the same way that we just did, we would say, well, the radius is the distance from the center point to the edge of the circle. And if we have 2 of those that form a straight line, then the diameter is twice the radius plus the size of the center, which in this case is 1. So in Bricklayer, the diameter of a circle will always be twice the radius plus 1. And what that means is it will always be an odd number. So it's important to know this if, for example, you want to create a Bricklayer program where you place 2 circles next to each other that are touching but not overlapping. You need to be able to figure out and think about how far apart they need to be. Okay, so here's a picture of a screenshot from my cell phone. I had Google Maps on, and the blue circle here shows me where I was. So this is where I was when I took this screenshot. And that's my reference point for Google Maps. So if I wanted to walk somewhere here, I would know, right? I would use that as my reference point. Now in Bricklayer, we also have reference points. Bricklayer put functions have a reference point. Basically, the reference point that we use for a put function is the lower left corner of the rectangle that you want to create, the brick that you want to build. That's its reference point. Now, when you're talking about circles, lower left corner the idea of lower left corner really doesn't make that much sense. Something that makes more sense would be the center of a circle. So in Bricklayer, the reference point for a circle is its center. And so what that means then, right, when you're using put functions, when you want to put a rectangle, you need to figure out the coordinate of its lower left cell. In contrast, if you want to place a circle, you need to figure out the coordinate of its center. So those are different calculations that you need to do. Okay, that pretty much covers the basics. So let's jump in and play a little bit. Let's write some bricklayer-lite programs that create circles. All right, so open up your browser, and we're going to go to Bricklayer. So bricklayer.org, bricklayer.org. And when you have that entered, you should get here if everything's going well. And then we're going to go to bricklayer-lite, and then to level 2. So our goal right now is to just have a little program that does one circle. So we're opening level 2. We aren't going to have any declarations. We haven't learned about that yet. We're going, whoops, open level 2, click. Then we're going to do our base plate. It's going to be, we'll make it 32 by 32. And then we go to function calls, shapes, and here we have our circle xe function. We pull that down, and then I'm going to pull down the show function and the semicolons that I need to finish off the puzzle pieces. Now, I don't know if you've done this before or not, but notice how this semicolon puzzle piece has sort of an orange-yellow border around it. That means it's selected. So if I do Control C, and that's copy, and then Control V is paste. So see there I have another one. If I do Control V again, I paste again. Control V again, I paste again. That way I don't have to keep selecting it with mouse clicks. All right, so I have all the puzzle pieces that I need. And so now on the circle function where it says radius, I have to put in a number, an integer, which is going to be the radius of the circle. So I'll put in 5 here. Then on this next box here, I get to select the color. So I'm a big fan of blue, so I'm going to pick blue. And this coordinate here now is the center is where the center of the circle is going to be. So if we leave it at 0, 0, that means we're going to just get sort of this quarter of a circle. But let's go ahead and do that and see what it looks like. Here we go. There's our quarter of a circle. So if I want the whole circle to appear, then I need to go over the radius, which is 5. And if you think about this for just a moment, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 is 5 cells. So 0 through 4 is 5 cells, and then the center is going to be on the next cell, which is the number 5. So 5, 5 should be the circle, it's the coordinate that's the closest to the origin where the entire circle fits. So let's run this. Okay. So now let's put another circle somewhere. So I'm going to notice how this circle function here, this function call is selected because it has that little orange yellowy outline. So I can do the same thing again. Control C, Control V, and now I have a copy of this. And I'm going to just slide it in here. And I'm going to pick a different color, something very different. Let's see, let's pick yellow maybe. And I'm going to shift the center. So I'll move it, let's say if I move it across 5, so 1 radius. So what that means, right, is that the center of this new circle is kind of at the edge, or actually is at the edge of the old circle. If I run this, so they should be overlapping. So yes, there's my overlapping. Notice how I have kind of this moon shape going on here. Okay, let's see here. Let's say I want them, well, let's just move it over 5 more. See what happens. And if you notice here, they are overlapping. So they're not side by side. They're slightly on top of each other. And that's because what we really want is the distance between the two centers to be 1 diameter if they both have the same radius. So the diameter is going to be 5 plus 1, so that's 11. So 5 plus 11 is 16. And here we go. So they're touching. Now, we can try other stuff. We can try to put a circle above here. I guess that won't be too hard, right? So we do Control C, Control V again. Pick a different color this time, maybe red. And so this time we want the X value doesn't change, but the Z value is going to change. So this is going to be 16. There. And then one last time, I'm going to select the circle function, Control C, Control V. And let's see, green, I guess, right? So we have green here. And this time, both the X and the Z values change. And so this would be our sort of our circle version of the Microsoft logo or something. And if you haven't done this before, let me kind of just show you this. If you do the output format from plain to Lego, this really only works if you have a good Wi-Fi connection, because these pictures that are going to come through take more, they have more data associated with them. But so these are little Lego pieces here, if you notice. So that's sort of the nuts and bolts of how to do this function. It's just important to remember on this radius part that you actually do have to put in an integer or you'll get crazy error messages. All right. All right, what I'd like to show you now are basically a couple of artifacts, a number of artifacts that have been created using circles that I think are actually pretty cool and might give you some ideas on the kind of things that can be done with circles. So this first one here is kind of, if you imagine drops of paint, right? So you have a drop of paint that falls on the floor and it creates a circle, and you have different sized drops and they're different colors and they don't all land in the same spot. So this is sort of these different sized circles overlapping but partially overlapping or whatever. I think this is a really fun exercise and it will get you comfortable with using circles if you play around with this. There's kind of no wrong answer here when you're coding something like this. Now this one here, we have a build space, and at the corner of each of the corners of the build space is the center of a circle. And so if you create a circle like that, then of course you only get a quarter of a circle. The rest gets cut out. And so here you have 4 quarters of a circle. And so I find the pattern that emerges out of the middle part, the empty part, looks pretty cool, actually, I think. You can create a moon shape by having a yellow circle, which would be the moon, and then you have an empty circle that's sort of next to it, overlapping a little bit. And that empty circle cuts out part of this yellow circle, and what's left over is a moon-shaped artifact. So here's a more advanced idea of these putting the centers of circles at the corners of your virtual space. So you have these 4 quarter circles again. You have a circle in the middle. And one question is, how do you get this black background everywhere? Well, one thing that you could do, at least at this point, is you could create a circle whose center is in the middle that has a very large radius. And so it will just fill everything in with black as a starting point. And then on top of that black base plate, if you will, you then put these in the 4 corners, you put these blue circles, you put another circle in the center, and then these lines here, using only bricklayer level 1 or level 2 put functions, this would be painful, but in level 3, which we will see in an upcoming video, you can actually have one put function that would create a rectangle that goes all the way across this build space, and another one that goes vertically all the way across. So it would take 2 put functions to do this, to do this vertical and horizontal line. Now you can stack You can place circles on top of each other where the circles have smaller and smaller radiuses. So what you can do here, you can change the color so you can sort of get this rainbow effect. These look like rings, right, at this point. And the last circle, once you get past your indigo and violet, the last one is a circle of empty bricks, so that carves out the rest and makes it look like a rainbow. Similar, this carving out is similar to how we created this moon shape. Now here is a chessboard that's made up of sort of this target circle idea, right, where we have layered circles of smaller and smaller radiuses that share the same center. This one looks pretty cool, I think. Here's another variation on that idea where we have this target idea, except this time the circles are layered. So the circles in the front are the closest, and the ones in the back are the farthest away as far as overlapping and stuff goes. This kind of pattern or this idea you'll see in Chinese patterns and decorations and stuff a lot. And then I'd like to end the video by showing you the kind of things that are possible in Bricklayer. So this is a really advanced program that does this, but it is possible to do these things in Bricklayer. Pretty much anything you can think of. So happy coding.